A question was put to Douglas, I think prompted Douglas by your remark that the one thing you must do is to stop or reduce the flow.
Yeah.
Therefore, the questioner asked, do you support a religious test for immigrants to this country? And I suppose what was in his mind was, if you don't, how on earth would you be able to reduce the flow?
First of all, of course, we've got to remember that we've been talking about asylum a lot, and certainly now the people coming into southern Europe, certainly the Italian points of entry, are not asylum seekers in the way that we're seeing. They're not Syrians. They are economic migrants looking for a better life, and that has always, in recent years, been a massive part of this. And these two things are constantly elided, deliberately elided, and I think dangerously elided. So yes, I could well get on board with a religious test. For instance, in recent years, there has been a significant genocide on our continent, on our planet, rather. Yazidis, who were almost wiped out a couple of years ago. I could certainly get on board with something that prioritized asylum seekers if they're Yazidis or Coptic Christians.
I can see what you're doing. I can see what you're doing there, Douglas, and that's good. What I'm saying is, would you want a religious test that didn't prioritize Yazidis, everyone finds that admirable, but would actually rule out and prevent Muslims from granting entry into this country?
I can't see the sense in keeping a high level of economic migration from the Muslim world, no.
So yes, a religious test to prevent Muslim migrants.
Secondly, very quickly, the gentleman at the back from Germany. First of all, it's not the case that it's been fine with Turkish migration since the Gastarbeiter period. Merkel herself said in 2010 that it had been a disaster. Then 5 years later, she made the disaster far bigger. But in 2008, Erdogan went to Germany and spoke to tens of thousands of Turks in Europe from the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, and said at a massive public rally, do not integrate, but get involved in politics because we need you. I'm sorry, this is subversion. This is outright subversion of European democracies. So yes, we had a problem. And as for the, as it were, would it matter if 1 in 1 million became a suicide bomber? Again, it's a cost-benefit analysis, isn't it? As long as you're not the one standing outside the wine bar in Ansbach when the suicide bomber goes off, it might be okay for you. It might be okay, and it seems to be for most people in our political parties in Britain, it might be okay for you to not worry about this identity question, not worry about the numbers, but you've just got to hope your kids don't like Ariana Grande and go on the wrong night. But I think the cost-benefit analysis of this...
Wow. Talk about the velvet glove hitting like a sledgehammer to that gentleman that asked the question that was from Germany. Probably a woke social justice warrior, elitist. Maybe not elitist, but at least a woke social justice warrior saying that, you know what? If one person out of 1 million ends up being a terrorist, okay, he's willing to do that. And Douglas just basically said, that's perfectly fine if it's not you standing outside that bar or restaurant when the bomb goes off, or it's not your children that are going to be at a concert. And he mentioned what happened at the Ariana Grande concert. It's perfectly fine to talk about it because you're sitting, so nice and cushy in an air-conditioned room pontificating about, esoteric questions about whether or not, it's okay. Like, what are we going to do, bean counters? Like they were doing with the car companies that would say, you know what? If we go ahead and recall all these cars, we're going to have to pay billions of dollars to retrofit them. But if we just let it go and there's accidents, well, you know what? Let's just tally up how much is it going to cost us to cover the lawsuits. Won't there be a lot less than retrofitting our cars? Bean counters do the math, do the analysis. Figure out, yeah, you know what? Let's go with the lawsuits. Forget about how many people get killed or die in car crashes due to negligence on our part. Anyways, I think that was so important to go back and hear that over again, that how succinctly and just how unbelievably, it just flows out of Douglas. And it just, like I said, it's that velvet glove that just, boom, sledgehammer hit. Let's go over that one more time, how he just starts getting into the flow of that, and then how the impact is just absolutely catastrophic to that person who asked that question. We're going to go to that clip. We're just going to go a little bit back. Do it right now.
As it were, would it matter if 1 in 1 million became a suicide bomber? Again, it's a cost-benefit analysis, isn't it? As long as you're not the one standing outside the wine bar in Ansbach when the suicide bomber goes off, it might be okay for you. It might be okay, and it seems to be for most people in our political parties in Britain, it might be okay for you to not worry about this identity question, not worry about the numbers, but you've just got to hope your kids don't like Ariana Grande and go on the wrong night. But I think that...
And there's that person that asked that question here, a German citizen, I believe, talking about that. And he's just getting... the velvet glove, with the slapper, velvet glove, velvet glove. Amazing, folks, just amazing.
Cost-benefit analysis of this has to be weighed up, and if you do think that, then say it. Okay. Say, we'll take a suicide bombing every now and then. We'll take the stabbings every now and then. Sure.
Christine wants to come back, and then I want...
Sure, go ahead, say it. Say it. Don't spray it. If you think that's fine, then just say it. At least you can debate that thing and say that. But to hold that back and say, you know what, okay, we're willing to take in as many migrants. We're willing to take in as many asylum seekers. We're willing to take in, the world's downtrodden, economic, whatever the reason is. But along with that, whatever problems come with that, if that means that the murder rate's going to go up, the rape rate's going to go up, the burglaries, the muggings, everything's going to go up. There's going to be less for our own people. We're going to have terrorist, attacks going on. If that's okay and you're willing to live with that, that Doug is saying, go ahead. Then say it. Be willing to admit it. That's what he's talking about.
Another one, yeah.
Just a reminder that most terrorist attacks that have happened in this country, as well as in France, have been committed by our citizens, by people having British or French or Belgian citizenship. But that's, again, the issue. How come our societies have not been able to cope with this generation of young people who have been through our schools, have benefited from our education, have been taught to share our values, and still turn to that murderous ideology?
What's your answer? What's your answer to that question, to your own question?
Again, an issue of identity, that somehow we haven't been able to give them an identity which they can share into.
Okay. Sorry, go on.
It's an ideology, even more so than a religious issue, and unfortunately, in this case, Islam is contaminated with that particular ideology.
Okay,
So what this lady from France is essentially saying is that most of the terrorist attacks have come from citizens that were born obviously in Britain, or citizens of France that were born in France. And so what she's trying to basically is play this, basically walk this line or be on the fence to say, oh, just don't blame all the immigrants. Don't blame the asylum seekers. Don't blame the refugees. It's being caused by our own people. Well, just because you were born in Britain, just because you were born in France, just because you were born in a Western democracy, does that mean that you had the patriotism of that country? That you had the nationality, but were you a part of that nation? No. Culturally, they were worlds apart. And as you said, these people were given the education in school. Well, maybe they weren't. Maybe they were homeschooled. Or maybe they didn't go to school. There was no assimilation from the first generation that came inside there. They still kept everybody within that enclave, in those ghetto areas, or in those areas that basically all the immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers, seek to be with their own. They didn't integrate or assimilate to other parts of the countries and spread out. So what was going on at that time? Yes, they may have been born in France, may have been born in British, but they didn't feel French, they didn't feel British. And so whatever was needed to fill that void occurred. And where did that occur? In those areas where those people were living. That's where, okay, the fostering of this anti-Britain, anti-France came along, that basically gave these people whatever, however you want to think about how that came about, okay, that in terms of going the next step forward and, you know, perpetrating a terrorist attack or violence against those people within France and Germany. And when she says that it's not a religious, it is a religious problem. It is a cultural problem that is occurring from these people, these migrants that are coming from these third world countries, and many times, like we said, very low education, very low skill level. And so that brings in a whole different, you know, a whole different, you know, I guess, bag of worms, so to speak, problems, you know, that are occurring. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host, Dr. Nasir. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel, like, share, and follow us. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Check out our video links above and below. We hope you enjoy those. Our final thought, when you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.